Grimsley, but it's Tuesday, so Brooke isn't here. So Brenden Schaeffer has made his way to the Sports Hub STL studios, and Sports Hub STL is presented by DraftKings, where the crown is yours. How'd you like that third straight win over the Pirates last night? Cardinals have won 3 in a row. It has happened. This is what they call a winning streak.
It is, Randy. It's good to be with you on this Tuesday. That was nice. That was, I thought that was one the Cardinals needed coming into the Pittsburgh series. You got the good vibes from Sunday's doubleheader sweep of the Mets. But then you look at the pitching matchups for the Pittsburgh series. It's a team they had lost to at their place. You shouldn't really lose to the Pirates. In game 2, you know you've got Skeens looming. I know the Cardinals have handled him well, but you know that's always going to be a tough one. Get game 1 against a lesser starter and push game to shove. They were able to do it.
And by the way, I think after last night's loss, the Pirates are mathematically eliminated.
I think that's right. Yeah, that's what my mind says as well.
They're done. 6-3 Cardinals. Barrero, in place of an injured Mason Wynn, who should be back tonight, has a sore ankle. But Barrero, 2 for 4, 3 RBIs, had a homer and a ground rule double. Wilson Contreras, as you noted, red hot, his 5th homer. His go-ahead 2-run shot in the 6th inning put the Cardinals ahead for good. And the Cardinal bullpen was great. After Mikolas allowed 3 runs in 5 innings, Graceffo a scoreless inning, Leahy a scoreless inning, Maton a scoreless inning, Helsley a scoreless inning. The bullpen did their job last night, and that helps you win games.
Yeah, and Graceffo gets the win, his 2nd of the season, and that's a key spot, too. When you're down 3-2, Oli Marmol can't necessarily start going to those late-inning guys chasing games. You got to have a guy like a Graceffo. Maybe it used to be Leahy. Now he has kind of graduated to a bigger role. I wonder what Graceffo could look like as a reliable guy, as that bridge man. I would think he might have even pitched more than 1 inning if the Cardinals hadn't taken the lead. But those are pretty important spots in your bullpen, and Graceffo now getting a chance to fill out that spot I thought was pretty nice last night.
And I'm not so sure that the Cardinals have figured out what they have in Graceffo yet, because he was such a good starter a couple of years ago when he was their minor league pitcher of the year. I know a lot of people within the organization say he profiles as a relief pitcher, but when he's been here, he's shown the ability to give innings too. Like you say, he could be a bridge guy, he could be a 1-inning guy, but maybe he can wind up as a starter too.
I think down the road, there's certainly that possibility. This has been such a bizarre year when you think about the rotation, and normally what happens is a couple guys will go down to injury, right? Attrition takes place starting in February, and that just hasn't happened to this point. And so the Cardinals are using guys in some different roles where if you had a few injuries to your rotation, would we right now be viewing Graceffo as somebody they might want to slide in there? Perhaps, but for the time being, I think it makes sense to try him out in this role and see what he can provide, because I think he is a big league pitcher. It's time to probably stop moving him back and forth, see what he can do at this level.
And I'm thinking that the Cardinals probably have, if they were going to have their power rankings, they have McGreevy, Quinn Matthews, who's back, and then Graceffo. So maybe the best path for Graceffo to make it to the major leagues is to be out of the bullpen.
Well, maybe, at least for the time being, but think about what things could look like next year. I'm still of the mind that this Cardinals team could be better than people kind of imagine in their minds. This team could be 500 or above. They could be a contending team and make it difficult on the front office in July to decide, are you selling? Are you holding? What direction do you want to go? But if things went the other direction, and even if they didn't, by next year, you're talking about Mikolas, Matz, Fetty, and who knows on Sonny Gray. Like, there could be a lot of turnover in spots available by 2026. And we've seen that before, where a guy might spend a year as a reliever, and then next year a spot opens up and the Cardinals give him that opportunity. So maybe that's the route for Gordon Graceffo.
All right. What did you think last night of the play that ended the 6th inning? Victor Scott, the second, being called out at home plate when it looked like he was safe.
To me, it was the worst instance of replay review in MLB history. I have never seen one that baffled me more than this play did.
All right, let's take a look at it. Lars Nootbaar hit what appears to be a sac fly, and he's going to hit it twice, actually.
Rock's doing a little movie magic for us.
Yeah.
And by magic, I mean, and now Caleb Ferguson gets a fly ball to center field. Runner at third. Scott going to tag, and here he comes, and O'Neal Cruz guns it to the plate, and he is out.
Crow beats him.
I've been waiting for that all year. We haven't.
Crow beats him.
Cruz, an absolute missile on the money.
And there's a replay.
This is the one right here. Look at that hand.
Hand in
wrist glove in. Elbow in.
Unbelievable.
I don't
screw it up so badly.
I don't know. I am at a. I mean, I can try to explain it. post game, I was not down there last night. I'll be down there at Busch tonight. I don't think Oliver Marmol really touched it as far as like saying too much about his true thoughts on it, which I would imagine would mirror ours. Going, what are they looking at? How are they missing this? But I guess if you're watching right there, it's very clear to us. Okay, his hand has extended beyond where the plate was. Is there a cloud of dirt that is obscuring whether or not his finger is actually on home plate? I guess you could make that case, but the dirt is flying in the air because why? His hands are connected to it. What's the plate connected to? The same earth that his hands are connected to. We can use our minds and go, yes, that is safe by a mile, and they didn't overturn it.
Wouldn't you like to see an umpire somewhere in that screen, in that frame right there?
Be nice. Be nice. Right where that guy is, that a guy in the batter's on deck circle? That umpire could probably be standing right there, have a better view at it, perhaps.
And the umpire is right behind the catcher where he can't see what's going on.
Not a clue.
So a manager must use a challenge on the home plate collision lane rule. You only get one challenge unless you're successful. It was 6-3 at that point, and the bullpen had performed reasonably well for the sixth inning at least. The thing was, they did use the replay, and the replay failed. And this is a problem, as you said, with Major League Baseball, isn't it? There's nothing Oli Marmol could have done about this. This is just a terrible call and a terrible replay.
I could be wrong and misunderstand what happened here, but I would be shocked if that were the case. I said I'll go down with the ship if I'm describing it, that Oliver Marmol challenged the play. And a lot of Cardinals fans said, well, did you hear how the umpire talked about it? The Cardinals didn't challenge the right thing. I don't think there's any realm in which that's actually what happened. And in fact, if you look on MLB.com, it showed both elements of the play are considered, whether or not there was a tag out safe, and also the umpires looked to ensure there was no blocking of the plate illegally by the catcher, which they determined that there wasn't. But that shouldn't have been the germane aspect of the play. The fact that Victor Scott's elbow was on home plate before he was tagged, to me, should have been enough. And MLB, like you said, the umpire in the wrong spot, that's one thing. In New York, they have every angle imaginable, and they still get it wrong. It's unfathomable. It really was.
Yeah, it's remarkable how bad the umpiring has been lately. Now, not to say there hasn't been good umpiring, because there has. We had a perfect umpire game a couple of weeks ago. But when you see players openly mocking umpires, like Scherzer did to CB Buckner the other day,
that was great
with the coin flips.
Yeah,
and you hear managers say, you know what, I'm not even going to talk about it. It speaks for itself. I think that for whatever reason, the umpiring has gotten worse. And there was a story in the Athletic over the weekend where that formerly 2-inch cushion on the inside and outside of the plate now has been cut to 3/4 of an inch. And that's got to be tougher on umpires too.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to talk about, when it comes to the minors, that stuff matters now because they have the ABS in play and they can look back and make those decisions. And so umpires probably have to make those adjustments on ball strike. Ball strike calls and people griping has been a facet for a long, long time. Rightfully so in many cases, but you would think with a play like this where there's not as much of a gray area. Did he touch home plate? Yes, he's safe. You would think that wouldn't be one they would miss, but you're right. It's been a trend recently in umpiring, it seems.
Yeah, they aren't that good. So if you want to weigh in on that on the chat, feel free to do so. I also want to touch on Miles Mikolas, because people say, well, he only gave you 5 innings and he allowed 3 runs. For Miles Mikolas, that's a quality start. All right. The normal quality start is 6 innings and 3 runs. I think with where we are right now, if you get Miles Mikolas to give you 5 innings and 3 runs, I think that's a win.
Yeah, and don't do the math on what the ERA would be there, but that's giving you a chance to win a game if he's your number 5 starter, which I think a lot of us view him in that way. I guess the problem becomes a little bit, I know you swept the doubleheader Sunday, but you look at the outings by Fetty and by Palante, kind of similar vibes. You don't want 60% of your rotation to settle for those types of outings.
No.
But when the Cardinals are winning games right now, that's what's supposed to happen. Like earlier in the season, the rotation was giving you quite a bit and they were squandering. We talked last week about the record and quality starts. It's not what it should be. Well, it's kind of going the other way with the offense helping to contribute to wins right now.
Right. You made a point just a moment ago about how the Cardinals might wind up being better than we or you thought they would be. They're 17-19. They're only a game out of second. Milwaukee and Cincinnati both tied at 500 at 18-18. To me, if they finish 500, that'd be, I thought that they were capable of I had as Mo would call it, a wide delta.
There you go.
Before the season started between 71 and 83. 71, they won 2 years ago. 83, they won last year. I think any of that fits. I would be really surprised if they won any more than 83, but this team, is kind of where I expected they would be.
Yeah, I mean, now that they're winning, now they're winning games, 17-19, getting closer to 500. I thought they would be in the 500 range. I did see upside for more, but the stars would really have to align. And we've seen some examples of the stars not quite aligning, but guys like Contreras coming around, you're starting to see better play. And so the record's going to begin to reflect that. It could still go a number of directions, though. There's no doubt about that.
Well, when you look at, and Jay Renegade is checked in here.
What's going on?
My favorite salty old man in sports, and Randy Karraker too.
Wow. You know what? You hit 30 and you become salty old man. I'll take it though. I take it.
That cloud.
I like it. I do. I'll if there's a cloud, I'm yelling at it, baby. Let's go. Let's get fired up. That's pretty good.
I think the one thing that I thought, Brendan, coming into this year though, is that if the Cardinals were going to be on the 83 win side, right, I thought that Gorman and Walker were going to have to be what they thought that they were going to be. And so far, they haven't been. Jordan Walker is below the Mendoza line right now. As you know, Gorman has not had a good start to the season. So, and Contreras didn't either. So for the Cardinals to get what they've gotten offensively, primarily out of Newt Barr and Scott, and then recently Mason Wynn and Donovan, I'm pretty impressed with what they've done offensively. I'm reasonably impressed. Not impressed. I guess I'm satisfied with what the rotation has given them. And we're all talking about the bullpen and how much better they could be if the bullpen was what it was last year. But the bullpen is not unlike the rest of the team. You got young guys that are getting runway. Ryan Fernandez probably got a little bit too much, and that's why he's in the minors right now. But I would think that we'll see the Memphis Shuttle in the bullpen for the rest of the year.
Yeah, it's something they've got to continue to do. And the guys that come up and play well, you'll see them probably not get shuttled as frequently. But they've got to use the organizational depth in that regard. And like Graceffo, the latest example, I think he's a guy that could have a little bit more of that runway. Now that you're into May and you go, okay, it's not as important to hold him back as a starter in terms of depth. You do have McGreevy very much waiting in the wings and ready when called upon. And obviously Steven Matz can cycle back into the rotation if you needed him to. So I think that gives the Cardinals a little bit of freedom to say, maybe we upgrade our bullpen by taking an arm that we do really like and putting him in a big league role that upgrades over whoever would have been in that spot otherwise. Maybe that is something that can help moving forward.
And I would think if you ever get a healthy Tink Hence, he's going to be a bullpen guy. He's never going to be a starter for the Cardinals. Graceffo might wind up being that guy. Tekoa Roby so far has stayed healthy as a starter, but Tekoa Roby has stuff that profiles as a relief pitcher. And if McGreevy and Matthews and Graceffo and Palante are here, then maybe a guy does get relegated to the bullpen. A good pitcher gets relegated to the bullpen. I think the arms are there. I don't think the pitching is there yet, but I think the arms are there.
I would agree with that. And it's time to, hopefully to see more of that develop over the course of this year, whether that's at the big league level or at the minors. And it's kind of difficult to have competing tracks, but that's the main track, I think, of this season is figuring out what all that looks like for next year. And then there's like the background image of, what if they do get to around 83 wins and maybe find a way to push beyond that? But there's still that drum beat in the background of, can they set things up for the future and have it not take 3 years to get there?
And that was what I was headed towards, because right now, starting pitchers 25 and under in the National League. Number 1 in ERA among those guys, Hunter Green. Number 2 in ERA among those guys, Paul Skeens. Number 3 among those guys is Matthew Liberatore. I think the development system is going to have to change because we've been waiting for Matthew Liberatore since 21. So 21, 22, 23, 24. Yeah. It's his 5th year, and he's finally getting that opportunity. And I would guess that Chaim Bloom will change the approach and maybe the trajectory of young pitchers, but we can't wait 5 years for a young pitcher to find his way in the rotation.
You'd like to not have to wait that long anyway, right? And are there things that maybe the Cardinals could have done previously to expedite that process for Liberatore? They probably tell you that they, poured into him in the ways that they wanted to, but from that development standpoint, I think especially laying that groundwork and foundation in the minors, that's a big part of what we've talked about with Chaim Bloom arriving on the scene, and that's really what he's spending his time doing, right? He's not running the big league roster right now. It's still John Mozeliak. And so could the Cardinals hopefully reap the benefits of that when Chaim hits the ground running as the Pobo next year? Is that something where he spent these last 2 years with that foundational background that can really help in the long run?
It's huge. His knowledge of the system and the players in the system will be huge. Nathan Culley, getting Herrera back soon should be big for the offense too. Hoping at least one of Gorman or Walker start to click soon in addition to that, well, now you've got, at least you think, you've got Alec Burleson hitting.
That would be huge for him. The power is the main thing, right? Two home runs in 2 days. He's got to swing for the fences, or what? What are we doing?
So do we have a platoon at DH? Does Herrera find his way back behind the plate? How do you get Herrera's bat in the lineup?
I'm playing him at catcher about half the time, which is, I think, what he was generally doing before he went down. And then I'm DHing him every single time against left-handed pitching. Like, if that's he's either catching or DHing against left-handed pitching, and it makes more sense to DH him, and you can find ways to get Pages in the lineup that way. He is technically a right-handed bat, and has, his numbers have come down, but he's done okay. That would be my answer. He didn't DH Ivan Herrera one single time before the injury. Now, it was only a couple of weeks, but you got to find more ways to get that bat in the lineup. He's one of your best bats, if not number one, with the way he was performing.
And maybe they can get him to start throwing better. That'd be nice.
Yeah, it would help. I mean, that was the drumbeat through spring. It's like they want him to take hold of that job behind the plate, because that was the most obvious way of getting him in the lineup, especially after Arenado stayed. It was like, okay, you've got those other middle infielders that you're trying to figure out, Gorman playing time, and then there's a downstream effect on guys like Burleson. If Herrera can take over, it's nothing on Pedro Pages, but I think that would be what would help the lineup machinations the most, is if he can catch 4 or 5 days a week and DH once, suddenly you figured that out.
All right. I want you guys to weigh in on this. Matthew, I want you to weigh in on this, because I think you can relate. Obviously, Brendan, the Pirates are 12-24. And for the better part, since 92, 02, 12, 22, better part of 33 years, except for 3 years about a decade ago, the Pirates have been a horrible organization. Now, we were victimized by a horrible organization that was being torn down specifically to move. But I felt sorry for us, and then I really felt sorry for us when the organization, the Rams, did move. I feel sorry for Pirates fans, because while our ownership here has done a lot of good things over the years, I mean, there's no way the Pirates ever make trades for people like Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt. There's no way they do what the Cardinals did in the 2000s. It's just an awful ownership. Do you guys feel sorry for Pirates fans?
That's interesting. Like, in the context of St. Louis Rams fans, no, because I'd rather be watching terrible football, because I'm a masochist. I'd rather be watching terrible football than not having a rooting interest. But from the perspective of, like, you kind of know going into almost every year that you're expecting not great things, and it's been that way for my entire lifetime, except for that little pocket you mentioned. I mean, I would say that's fair. I feel, but I mean, they do have Paul Skeens, so maybe there's brightness ahead. But to your point, like, ownership remaining the same, that's the drumbeat that's going to make it difficult.
And this is 2 years into Paul Skeens. They aren't winning this year. Right. It's 2 years out of 6. That they'll have him,
or 4.5.
I mean,
It's hard not to feel sorry for Pirates fans, because to Brendan's point, it's a malaise, and it's also, I think the part you really got to feel sad for them, and this is kind of what had happened with Rams fans post 2006, which was any sort of positivity was kind of like a punchline, which was, like the Sam Bradford thing immediately, Paul Skeens gets good, and immediately every single person in Pittsburgh is making a joke about, 2029 free agency.
Right.
And how he's going to go to the Yankees or the Dodgers or the Cubs or what have you. So the fact that you can't even get excited about Paul Skeens because you already know in your mind, we're not ponying up to keep this guy if he's what he could be, which is the best pitcher in Major League Baseball. We're not keeping him. So it's that level of depression that you can't even enjoy even the 82 wins and almost making the playoffs like they were doing there with McCutchen. You can't even enjoy those now because there's no point to it.
Here's the Pirates, what they've done in the last 33 years. Between 1992 and 2013, they had 0 winning seasons. From 92 to 2012, 20 years, they had 0 winning seasons. Then they had 3 winning seasons in a row, 94 wins, 88 wins, 98 wins, then 2 losing seasons, and then 82 and 79, and they haven't had a winning season now since 2018. They've had 5 winning seasons in the last 33. I really feel bad for those people.
I think that's right.
They're good fans. They're good sports fans, but they're given no reason to show up and cheer.
I was going to mention that they are quality sports fans. Like, we see the way they support the Steelers. And you remember back to, I think it was 2013 when they made Cueto drop the ball because they were chanting his name. Like, they get after it and they get fired up. The Pirates just haven't given that fan base very much to get fired up about over the course of the time span we're talking about.
Yeah, and that's my thing is you see how good Steelers fans are. You see how good Pittsburgh Penguins fans are. It's hard to just watch a good fan base just get treated like absolute crap by an ownership group like that, and that's the real bummer of it. And yeah, as somebody who, I especially feel for them because in Pittsburgh, the Penguins and the Steelers are bigger than the Pirates.
Right.
In St. Louis, the Cardinals were always bigger than the Rams, but I was always a bigger Rams fan. And so consequently, I know there's a lot of Pittsburgh Steelers fans who are like, as long as the Steelers are good, I'll be okay with the Pirates fans sucking. But there are people undoubtedly who live in Pittsburgh who are bigger Pirates fans than Steelers fans, and they don't get to have that little mental salve. And as somebody who was in St. Louis and winning a World Series in 2006 as a sophomore in high school, I didn't have the mental salve of the Cardinals didn't work with how bummed I was every day about the Rams.
And the Pirates, when they won, of course, they were going against the Steel Curtain, right? So it was one of the iconic football franchises of all time. But I would argue that the Cardinals weren't always bigger than the Rams here. From the Greatest Show on Turf era, 99, 2000, 2001, start of 2002, you could not get a Rams ticket. And I would argue that with the descent of McGuire, that Kurt Warner was the biggest sports star in town.
Yeah. Literally, it's like literally 04. You can pinpoint when it switches back.
Yeah.
You get the MV3. That's the last time the Rams are ever in the playoffs.
Right.
Right there. Bam.
Yeah.
And that's when I went from being like a sports fan because my parents had it on the television too. I was turning 12 and 13, and I was going out of my way to watch sports on my terms. Was right around 2004, 2005 when the Cardinals take back over and the Rams fall off a cliff for the next decade.
Bubs checks in. He says, blame the owner on this one. Pittsburgh would be a fantastic baseball market if they would just be given a good product. Bubs, you're 100% right.
That stadium is a great, I mean, that's a great backdrop.
Everybody says it's the best one. Best one in the league. Yeah, you're right. And the fans do chant, sell the team, sell the team. Even when they make moves, like they signed Tommy Pham at the wrong time. Even when they sign free agents, they don't make the right.
But they're like, well, what, you going to complain about that? We're trying. Like, that's the way that they can frame it, even though it's like, come on. That's not what it's about.
Yeah, it's a bad organization, and it sucks to have a bad organization. And at least they know that, but we didn't know. It took us until, 13 to really believe that Kroenke was tearing things up to move the team.
The difference there is, and it's harder in the NFL to be obviously cheap because almost every NFL team every year spends towards the cap, unless it's this obvious, we're tearing things down, we've got a bunch of dead money. And so you really couldn't point to the Rams not spending money.
You could spend bad money
until 15.
They were brilliant.
Yeah. It was they were covering up. They were spending all the money they had to not make it look like they were major leaguing the situation until it was very obviously that they had major leagued the situation. That was the toughest part, is because they were always spending towards the cap. They weren't shorting people on bonus money. Everything was up and up for the most part.
Looking back though, and I do appreciate the brilliance of this signing, giving people like Harvey Dahl big money, or Mike Sims Walker, or Jacob Bell.
The wide receivers over and over were unbelievable.
Jake Long, nobody else in the league.
Ron Robinson got a little bit of taste.
So they were giving good money to bad players. Yeah. They were spending to the cap. And that's what they used in their little book report when they were going to move. They were spending to the cap, but they knew they were spending on bad players. How do we know? Because as soon as they moved out there, what'd they do?
Same GM got good.
He got Andrew Whitworth. He got receivers.
There's nothing that will ever bother me more on a personal sports fan level than being a Rams fan, and then they go out to LA, and the very first things they do is get Andrew Whitworth, and then they draft Cooper Kupp. And then it's right when I was like, you know what, fine, they won the Super Bowl, I'm over it. They decided to draft Puka Nacua, and I'm like, if these SOBs hit on another late round wide receiver, I'm gonna lose it.
Did you?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, okay.
I lost.
He's got it. It's gone. It does not have it.
I officially was like, I can't. I can't do this anymore. I blew my stack and I almost like reset my level of anger. I don't care about the Rams anymore. And it took me like losing it when they had another late round wide receiver put in the greatest season of all time at the position. Ridiculous.
Sports Hub STL postgame shows are brought to you in parts by Hot Shots, and Hot Shots invites you to come out to their St. Charles location on Sunday, June 1st to celebrate their 35th anniversary. The fun starts at noon with a parking lot party featuring the Budweiser Clydesdales. Get your pictures taken with them. Prizes will be given away all day. There's a darts tournament at noon, bags or cornhole at 2, plus a chance to win Hot Shots tacos for a year. Congratulations to Hot Shots on 35 years. Hot Shots, St. Louis home for all the games all the time since 1990. Find yours at hotshotsnet.com. All right, Brendan at The Athletic, Jim Bowden says he'd like to see the Cardinals trade Helsley to Philadelphia and Arenado to Detroit in May. I don't see either of those happening. And I don't. This is why Jim Bowden is a former general manager, right? Because he's focused in on getting one guy from one team. Why not open up a cornucopia of possibilities and say, do the group text to Major League GMs? Say, we're moving Helsley. What do you got for me? Why just focus in on one team?
Yeah, I mean, he's got an article to write, and so he's going to find a landing spot. Evidently, Philadelphia would have interest in Helsley. I think it makes sense for them to do so, but certainly the Cardinals, I think, first of all, probably not waiting, or I should say, probably not doing this in May.
Not in May.
Right? Like, first of all, you're for as much as it is probably that kind of retool season, you don't send that additional message, I don't think, to Cardinals fans on May the 6th as they are maybe coming around and trying to make their way back toward 500. Yes, the pitfall to that is what if Helsley is not still healthy in July? There are risks associated for sure, but that's when, like you said, more than just maybe one team has interest. When 5 of them do at the same time before a deadline, which makes a deal happen, you get a better return. And so the Cardinals are, but keep this in the backdrop though, Randy, when you think about Helsley, they're going to be careful with him. They're not going to burn him out in the spots where everybody thinks, well, why didn't Ollie go to Helsley? There has to be that escape hatch. There has to be that, all right, as long as he's healthy in July, if we're not in it like we want to be, he's going to be one of the most prized commodities on the market, but only if he's healthy. So they have to keep that in mind.
And they kind of found their sweet spot with him too last year, how to use him, when to use him. He was a guy that didn't want to pitch every day because he was worried about getting hurt. And the Cardinals said, look, we aren't going to use you in multiple innings. You don't have to worry about that, but we do need you sometimes on back-to-back days. And so they've kind of found their sweet spot with him. And I think depending on what happens, bless you, the rest of this year, if, for example, they do finish 500 or if at the deadline they're at 500,
right,
they might go to him first and say, hey, do you want to re-up here? If they feel like they can win in the next 3 years with Ryan Helsley, I wouldn't be at all surprised if the Cardinals would go to him. And obviously they have to do this with the approval of Chaim Bloom, but I wouldn't be at all surprised if the Cardinals would go to Helsley and say, hey, we'd like to have you around for a few more years.
I think there's merit to that. I guess it would surprise me only because we haven't seen any of those types of moves yet, knowing that there's a transition happening with the front office. And like you mentioned, Randy, Chaim Bloom is going to have to be involved in these conversations, you would think, in July, especially if it's sell mode, where you're thinking about, all right, what kinds of pieces and parts is he going to want to recoup in those trades of expiring assets? I just don't know if the Cardinals, and like it traces back to ownership as well. I think there's enough impediments right now where it all still feels like a wait and see game to me, which is where a guy like Hells could get lost in the shuffle and be traded without ever really having that opportunity to re-sign.
You're not the Blues. Don't think you're the Blues. This isn't some.
We don't say that word.
This isn't some half step. We keep Helsley, we re-sign him. Michael McGreevy turns into a low number 2, high number 3. Graceffo's in the lineup too. Like, you're not about to Broberg and Holloway it with these young pitchers and pull off a Blues again. And that's the only situation where keeping Helsley for multiple years would be the smartest baseball move. I'm not saying it wouldn't work. I'm saying to make the smartest baseball move, you would have to think that you can turn these young pitchers, to your point, into a 2s and 3s that you can win with when Sonny Grazier won and Burleson's hitting and Contreras hitting. You think this offense can be what it was for the first 2 weeks? I think that is a very risky roll of the dice for the Cardinals.
Well, but as we have seen with their sell-off of a couple of years ago, selling is a risky proposition too, right?
Yeah.
For this organization. I mean, Roby's pitching well at Double-A.
That's a good point.
Thomas to JC.
So JC was good while he was here. King came in that group. It's not like they have picked up Cole Reagans in their sell-off.
Would have been nice. Would have been nice. I do think, though, if you get to that point, Helsley is probably more valuable than anybody you sold during that 2023 sell-off.
Free agent, yeah.
But still, you're connected to that free agent to be syndrome, which is why, and I don't know if they would go this far, and I certainly wouldn't be in favor of it. There's other guys like that group of players that's arbitration eligible, where if you're talking about trying to get more for guys at the deadline, it's that crop of Newt, Barr, Donovan. I, for one, think should be Heimblum's first move, is to figure out what the contracts look like for those two guys and send a message to Cardinals fans of, like, it's not going to take 3 to 5 years, and here's how we know that, because we're going to commit to these guys, but will they is the question.
Here's the other thing. You're overloaded with what you think are good left-handed hitters. One of those guys is going to have to go because you can't use them all the time. Right?
Yeah.
And Gorman would probably be the guy if they had to make that move today. But Gorman, Newt Barr, Burleson,
Donovan's a lefty.
Donovan, yeah. So you're overloaded with left-handed hits. You've got too many bodies. Plus, you have Davis on the way. So I think at some point, one of those guys has to go, and you have to evaluate which one is the right one to go.
Well, and I think right now, the guys who are most consistently performing are Newt Barr and Donovan.
Yeah, well, and Donovan's probably your best all-around player, right?
Yes, I would agree with that.
And then Newt Barr is he's your leadoff man. He's an outstanding offensive player. So that leaves Gorman and Burleson. Burleson's going to have to heat it up a little bit. And I wonder how, at this point, as much as we know what Nolan Gorman is capable of, I wonder what sort of market value he would have.
Probably not a lot if I had to guess, but you're talking about he's hitting 190. He's got a 580 OPS. He's got that in however many plate appearances. Yeah. They got to triple the plate appearances. That's why 2025 is you find out and then you go, you know what? These lefties, here's the odd man out, because we didn't play him for 2 months and said, oh, he stinks. We played him for the whole year and maybe he stinks. And then you find out and you make decisions from there.
Now, I want to touch on something that Samuel Howe checked in with earlier. He said, establish the trade market early. I loved it when Doug Armstrong did that a couple of years ago with Tarasenko and O'Reilly and Barbashev, and they traded somebody else that trade season. But in the NHL, you're trying to get first-round draft choices, and there's a finite amount of first-round draft choices. In baseball, you're basically, when you're selling, you're trading for prospects. And what you're hoping is to get multiple prospects. In the NHL, you're hoping to get a number 1, maybe a number 4 from another team. So there really is a finite amount that you can get in exchange for a star that's going to be a UFA. I think that, as you mentioned, as you go towards the deadline, which is what everybody does, you're waiting for that competition to build up and somebody to say, you know what, I'll give you an extra prospect. And then another team to say, I'll give you an extra prospect. And then the other team to say, okay, I'll give you 3 prospects. The baseball deadline and trade season is different than the hockey trade deadline and season, because hockey, well, they do have prospects. There aren't as many as there are in baseball. And the value in hockey is the number 1 pick. It's not in a prospect,
which you can't trade in baseball. So other than the competitive balance or whatever types of picks. So that's a great point. And I also think it's dependent upon what you're trading. Like if you're talking about a top flight closer that you're hoping can be the belle of the ball when you get to July, that makes sense to wait. Is there a situation like what's materializing in Boston where they lose their first baseman and they say, okay, somebody might decide to jump in and make a deal with the Red Sox sooner than later because of a need that is opened up? But a lot of times, do those moves come from maybe those pre-existing relationships that GMs have with one another, where it's like a move of convenience for both sides? The Cardinals have a bunch of corner infielders that you would think would make sense for the Red Sox. Do they have those relationships? Now, their top guy is Mozeliak. The other guy is Heimblum, the guy that obviously he knows some people probably over in Boston, but there's been a lot of change, and it was his prior regime. So, like, does a deal like that happen in May? How easily does that come together? It is a fair question, and I'm not really sure the answer.
And like most franchises, when you lose a guy, the Red Sox are going to try to fill it internally, probably for a month or so.
Yeah.
One of their best prospects is a first baseman. He's probably not ready, but I would guess that they'll probably look internally and wait a month or so before they even consider a deal.
Because then you're in June, July, and everybody's now thinking about trades a little bit more. And maybe instead of having to talk to one team who had some first basemen, but you weren't over the moon about any of them, you can talk to 3 teams who have some different options to present you.
Hey, the 2025 St. Louis Sports Show is going to take place at the DoubleTree Hotel in Chesterfield on Friday, May 30th through Sunday, June 1st. There's going to be autograph signings from stars such as Grant Fuhr, Ryan O'Reilly, Roman Berkey, Armand Membo, and many more, plus tons of vendors with trading cards and memorabilia. Just go to stlsportshow.com to find out the schedule and all of the information. VIP packages and photo ops are available for most athletes. Plus, right now, use the code SHOW15. The code is SHOW15, and you can get 15% off tickets for Fuhr, O'Reilly, and Berkey just using that code SHOW15. It's the 2025 STL Sports Show, Friday, May 30th through Sunday, June 1st at the DoubleTree Hotel in Chesterfield. STLsportshow.com. You need to check that out.
My favorite, I like that there's 2 Mizzou players on here. Got to get the draftee Membu in there, but also Kevin Coleman, who I'm so happy that he's at Mizzou, because the only chance he was ever going to be at Mizzou was when Luther left, and that happened. And so
that's what I hear. So
yeah, I like how that was like a really big thing when they were both seniors in high school, and then they went their separate ways, and no one really talked about it. And then when he got here, no one really talked about it. You were like, wait, I thought I remember something from their senior years in high school.
I had a chance to meet Kevin Coleman a couple of weeks ago. Nice guy, and can run like the wind, and 4th school in 4 years.
Yes, and you know what? We didn't talk about this last week when it hit, but ESPN put out their list of top 15 transfer classes in football. Mizzou came in at 6th,
3rd in the SEC.
Schaeff, what were you thinking about that ranking? What are you thinking about the Tiger football team?
I agree with it. I agree with the transfer ranking being one that is seen as favorable. And I love what I'm seeing in terms of like the different places that put out rankings when it comes to the running back position. Ahmad Hardy is getting a lot of love that I think is right. I think he's going to be a huge reason that Mizzou is as good as I think they're going to be this coming season. And I just think there's an element of, as long as they can figure out how to replace the production on the offensive line, because you did have 2 linemen drafted. Yep. And so I think every team, whether you lose that production or not, always comes into fall camp going, all right, what does this look like on the line? Are we good where we need to be? If they can run block for a scheme that involves Ahmad Hardy and Bo Prabula, it's going to be a really, because I think the defense is loaded. That's the other part of it too.
I've seen multiple lists that have Hardy,
I know,
as projected as the best running back in the SEC
in the conference
this year. That's nuts.
I think it's right.
That's
I think
insane.
When you think about, as again, run blocking is going to be everything, but the potential of a zone read type of offense with Prabula, who that's what he did. He came in for a team that went to the playoff and went deep in the playoff, and they still were using him until he said, I have to enter the portal because I'm not going to have my chance if I don't, because of the ridiculous timing of it all. They were using him in all the games to run that. Can he throw? We're going to find out. Eli Drinkwitz has said that they've been impressed with the way that he has thrown the football and maybe exceeded expectations in that regard. Him and Ahmad Hardy, who had the best zone running rating with what he did last year in the Sun Belt, I believe it was. I am very, very excited about. And when you run that option, when you run the ball a bunch and have that be your bread and butter, and then you can mix in these talented fast receivers, you're holding the ball more often. Your defense is staying off the field. They added a ton of defense in the transfer portal, positions that they needed it, like safety. They added a couple of them. I think they're going to be really good. You're going to have a hard time containing me when we get to August. That's all I'm saying.
Any chance that they would move Green? Because when they first got Caden Green from Oklahoma, he was listed as a tackle. Then he played guard last year. Any chance that he plays tackle, or do they give him a chance to play tackle?
There's definitely a chance. Could they still, look to make an addition? Last year in the spring portal, it was Marcus Bryant that they added, and he's the guy that ends up getting drafted by the Patriots. And I think that was a case where the way that they described it was they would have had Caden Green play tackle, but he was a good team player and said, look, if you have a chance to go get Marcus Bryant, you think he makes us better, I'll shift back into guard and, kick the can down the road on moving back outside. I think it'll be a matter that they'll look at in camp, and he'll probably, however it gets shuffled, if he's best suited inside, he'll stay there. If not, I don't think they're afraid to kick him back outside if there's nobody that really jumps off the page.
I just can't get over. I mean, it's for the last 10 years that Mizzou's been in the SEC, or I know now I guess this will be the 12th or 13th season they've been in. It's just Tennessee, Florida, Georgia, Auburn, Alabama. One of those 5 schools always has, it seems like, a NFL level running back.
Mhm.
And for Mizzou to go into a season where it feels like the SEC, there's always running backs. And so for Mizzou to go into a season where they potentially have the best running back in the SEC, that's just, it's a weird threshold that I just never thought they would ever pass with Bama being in the same conference. It's insane. And Texas and Oklahoma now too.
Yeah. And think about it. 2 years ago, we had no idea that we had the best running back in the SEC, right?
Right.
And we wound up with the best guy. So that's one thing that Drink and his staff are pretty good at is, and Curtis Looper, their running backs coach, they are able to scout running backs. One of the other things, the Mizzou, one of the things that made this transfer portal class so good is an edge rusher by the name of Damon Wilson. Last year, Mizzou, and he came from Georgia. Last year, Mizzou got an edge rusher by the name of Darius Smith from Georgia. Now think about all the edge rushers that go in the first round of the NFL draft from Georgia. And Mizzou has a couple of these guys that Georgia recruited, right? And they weren't getting the minutes. They weren't getting the playing time at Georgia. But I could see the edge rushing from Mizzou with those two being really fierce.
Yeah, and like Darius Smith was supposed to be a big part of what they were looking to do last year, and he had the injury in camp, and you didn't get to see him. So having him hopefully healthy and being able to contribute, that's the thing. Knock on all the wood you can find. Get through camp healthy, because we're talking about all these players that are exciting. You'll have some attrition. You have to hope that the key guys we're talking about can just stay healthy. Ahmad Hardy is another example of that. There's a lot to be excited about. And that's the thing. They have depth at those position groups defensively to be able to withstand some of the natural attrition that happens. You just hope for a good injury luck in camp and go from there. I think you're going to be in a great spot.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see, too. And Prabula, by all accounts, had the best spring. He was really good for the Tigers in spring, but they still love the talent of Sam Horn.
They do.
And I don't know that there is a real competition here, but especially after what we saw last year, I feel a lot more comfortable with Sam Horn
for sure,
as my backup quarterback.
Yes, I think Sam Horn as your backup is an upgrade over Drew Pine, who they gutted through the Oklahoma game. But I think Sam Horn, if something would happen to your starter, who's going to be Bo Prabula, you're going, all right, we can run an offense. He's going to throw the ball down the field. Like, we can still do a lot of the same things. I do not think that, and again, Drinkwitz is doing exactly what he should do, describing the competition and giving Sam his due. But they didn't bring in Bo to be the backup quarterback, and all the NIL that was associated with him coming in. I would be stunned to my core if it's a camp battle that he loses, right? And that's not a knock on Sam Horn, who I think is really good. There's also a world in which Sam Horn gets drafted as a pitcher this summer, and we're having a completely different conversation.
I heard he was throwing 96.
He's throwing heat, and he's been, having the results improve as he goes along, as he's returned recently to Mizzou baseball.
Also, you brought up the Bo Prabula usage last year at Penn State when they would use him for these gadget plays. I think you build a package with Sam Horn, and you take advantage of the fact that there's no one on that field who's expecting somebody wearing 21 to be a quarterback. So you take advantage of the fact that it's the worst quarterback number since the movie version of Friday Night Lights.
There you go.
And you confuse people with that. And that's one way you use Sam Horn this year for the Tigers.
I would love to do anything that's involving trickeration and getting cheeky, getting creative. I'm all for that. And again, they like Sam Horn, like you said, Randy. It has been one of those things to me, though, where they said, look, you can come to Mizzou and you can do both. You can play baseball and you can play football. And they've been super supportive of that. I think, though, the reason you go out and make sure you land a guy with the potential upside of Bo Prabula is because this is the SEC, and you do have to have that number one quarterback. That's his whole thing, is playing quarterback. I'm not saying Sam Horn couldn't do it if he were thrust into a starting role, but it also makes sense to prioritize the position the way that they have.
Yeah, you just don't know. That's the bottom line.
Right.
By the way, Matthew, you'll like this. One time in the NFL, there was a quarterback that wore number 21.
Was it pre-merger?
1970s.
What?
John Hadel. John Hadel played for the Chargers and the Rams and wore number 21.
I thought by the 70s they had inputted some of the restrictions on jersey.
He was grandfathered in.
There you go.
Because he played from 62 to 72 with the Chargers.
Started pre-merger. Okay.
Yep. Rams 73, 74. He wore number 21 for them. Then he moved to the Packers in 74, wore 12. They didn't let him. And then he went to switch to 21 for the Packers in 1975 as a quarterback, and then 76 and 77 played for the Oilers at quarterback and wore number 20.
I was going
John
to suggest
HADL.
I was going to suggest that this guy it'd be fun to get that jersey, right? Because 21, but then I saw some horrible things about him from his past.
Oh no.
Oh, John Hadel?
John Hadel from Lawrence, Kansas, attended
is that the horrible thing?
the University of Kansas.
Okay. Yeah.
No, I said he did
Fair-
something really bad.
Fair enough. Yeah.
I dug up the skeletons of his
Yep, you did.
life
That
in
didn't-
Lawrence.
The internet man.
That's pretty bad.
Gets you every time.
Is that not bad? I thought that was unforgivable.
Oh, I just love that the NFL was so laid back at a time that if you get grandfathered into a rule,
Yeah.
but then change everything about the rule, you can't go back to it.
Well,
Like he was
but-
grandfathered in, switched to 12, and then he went back to 21.
Well, because that was his number. So, but he was grandfathered in from the AFL too.
Okay, fair
So,
enough.
Interesting.
It's
hey,
still an ugly number.
yeah,
Don't be a quarterback with 21. We got to put a stop to this.
Yeah, we do. Hey, if you're thinking about lunch today, you need to find your way over to the Fenton Bar and Grill on Rudder Road in Fenton for the best trash wings that you'll ever have. Just look at the deliciousness that you see there. Ooh, and look on the upper right. There's those tater tots. Fantastic tater tots. Great specials every day. And there on the left are the best trash wings that you'll ever have. Dazzling, delicious. You'll love every single bite. Have it with their signature golden sauce or a cup of ranch, and you're going to have a great time. Stop by today. Say hi to Megan and my friend Casey over there. They're having a great time, and they will treat you very well. And by the way, you might have missed it last night, but next Monday, 10 trash wings for $10 at Fenton Bar and Grill. Mondays from 5 to 9. For dine-in, you can enjoy ice-cold domestic bottles of beer for $2 as well. And it's a great place to watch the game. They'll have the Cardinal game TVs tonight. It's a dive with a vibe. It's not necessarily a sports bar, but whatever you want to watch, they're going to have it on at the Fenton Bar and Grill. Whether it is to watch a game, hang out after golf, you should be golfing today, have a great business lunch, happy hour, dinner, any occasion, stop by the Fenton Bar and Grill. By the way, they've got music going every Friday and Saturday now. You need to check that out. And say hi to the 2024 Maitre d' of the Year, Chuck. You'll have a great time at the Fenton Bar and Grill, the dive with a vibe on Rudder Road, just 2 minutes from the soccer park. Tell them Randy sent you at the Fenton Bar and Grill. How about that? Whew, that
Looks good. Got me hungry.
Those are the most unbelievable wings that you'll ever have right there on the left. So you need to check it.
Got to get there.
Yes, you do.
Look at that. Now he's
there we go.
showing us the video.
I mean, that's just enticing, as that's what that is.
Gentlemen, the Blues are holding their end of season press conferences today, and Army and Monty will meet with the media. I'm guessing we'll find out that Dylan Holloway and Tyler Tucker both have had serious injury issues, and that Kyrou and Thomas were probably both playing really banged up. The Holloway injury, I'm concerned about him being back for the start of the season.
Really?
It's going to be surgery, and hopefully he will be back. I think there will probably be some stapling or some tacking involved when he undergoes surgery. Yeah, it could be an ugly situation for Dylan Holloway. He wasn't coming back during the playoffs. But what's your big takeaway from this season?
I'm the wrong guy to ask, Randy.
Oh, come on.
I'm not going to be over it for a while. Is where I'm at.
So you're really affected by this, aren't you?
I am.
Oh my gosh.
I saw Randy and Brooke yesterday, and you guys did such a good job of kind of saying, because there are, if you want to be like objective and fair, there's a lot. There's a lot to take out of it.
Here, look at this.
That I'm not going to look in that gentleman's direction. Yeah. He's wearing some sort of Winnipegian
you have a
colors.
Second one? You own multiple Jets jerseys.
Who let him in here? Who let that guy in
here? This is Wilson, our
I didn't need that. No, I have I'm not ready. Maybe Labor Day gets here, Randy, and I'll be ready to go.
Right,
you know what?
To start a camp.
I'll say, you know what? The Blues, they really did last year. They really did they did what people weren't expecting. When you're up 3-1 in that game.
Yep.
When you're up 3-2 in that game.
Yep.
And you just clear the puck one more time and you win.
Yep.
I'm having a hard time with it. I still am.
They were severely outplayed in periods 2, 3, and 4, and then 5 was pretty even actually until they won. They on Winnipeg's home ice, the Blues were just not the better team. What I'm going to take out of this season is that after Jim Montgomery was hired as coach, they were 35, 18, and 7. Only the 10th team in the history of the league to qualify for the playoffs after being 8 or more points behind with 26 or less games remaining. So it was an historic rally on the part of the Blues to even make the playoffs. By the way, the third team to do it in an 82-game season, come back from 8 or more down with 26 or fewer less to make the playoffs. It was a remarkable run by the Blues. And one thing that I am of the belief of, and if anybody has a disagreement with this, I want you to chime in here. I don't think that there was a single Blue that didn't play better under Jim Montgomery. I think every single Blue improved and played better under Jim Montgomery than they were playing under Drew Bannister. Every single one of them.
Yeah. It's like they were waiting. I mean, they were waiting for Jim Montgomery to become available, and they probably thought it might have happened a year sooner than it did. And when it didn't, they kind of got into that holding pattern and then got their guy who really did set the tone for everything and got them as far as they went. And so, like, there are ways, again, if you want to be objective and fair, you could say, well, yeah, this is obviously a great sign for the future. But yeah, I don't know. Labor Day, I'll be able to reflect on the season in a way. I don't think I can watch another hockey game. Yeah. Like this, I love the Stanley Cup playoffs. I don't know if I can watch it. I was waking up every 90 minutes having, like, the dreams I was having was like watching the play. And like, I had to rewatch it in real life after the dreams that night, because I was like, was I being fair in my dreams? Was it as bad as it seemed like? I had to actually kind of ground myself. It was pretty bad.
One of my favorite parts about yesterday was contextualizing the remorse. And so, and Randy put it, I think, a lot further down the list. Even since
really?
Even since like 1999, since 2000, starting with the Super Bowl loss.
Okay.
Or I guess you threw in 96 with the loss to the Red Wings. But he put it a lot lower the list, and I think a lot of St. Louis people
what
had
beat
it in the moment. For you,
what
beat it?
I want to know what
you had a bunch that beat it.
You had a bunch of games that were worse, like in terms of the way you felt about it.
There'll never be anything that comes close to Super Bowl 36, because
that was
everyone that I had was a team that I thought had a chance to win a championship.
Okay.
And I was looking ahead with this team. And if you watch Dallas, I don't think this team was going to beat the Dallas
Interesting.
Stars.
Okay.
So, but yeah, I look at the 96 Blues, the 01 Blues, the 2000 Rams where Akeem dropped the ball at the end of the game, the 2001 Rams that lost the Super Bowl, the 85 Cardinals with Don Denkinger's call. All of those teams, I think, had a chance to win a championship, whereas I didn't think this team had a chance to win the championship. I think that this was a really good season for the Blues. As a matter of fact, Brendan, I think that whether what happened on Sunday night happened or not, that the Blues had reached their peak for 24-25. I think that it could have gotten really ugly against a team like Dallas. Now, anything can happen because it has before. Binnington could have gone nuts. But in my heart of hearts, I think the Blues did everything good that they were going to accomplish in 24-25.
Interesting. Like, I think they could have given Dallas or Colorado, had it been Colorado, a run. I don't know.
Colorado more than Dallas.
Maybe would have been a better matchup. My thing was this, and you're right. Like, you can look at the individual periods of Game 7 and say they didn't outplay the Jets in, those waning periods of the game, but they earned the 3-1 lead that allowed them to play a style that was gonna get them there anyway.
They dominated period.
That was the thing, is like they had set up the lead to where they didn't have to be the better team in the second and third periods. They just had to play the defensive, hold the lead style. You'd like to think they would have kept attacking. It's not always realistic to have that happen. They did enough until you got to 6-on-5 and they completely squandered it, to where, like, if you had looked at 6 games and 56 minutes of that series, the Blues were definitively the better team. It wasn't even close, in my opinion. And that's what's really, really difficult about it.
In your personal rankings, I'm guessing up there would be 14 Ishikawa, the SEC championship against Auburn.
No, the 13 was the one they really had a chance. Mizzou.
13 SEC championship, 14 NLCS. What else is where is it? Is it the worst one in your life?
No. I mean, and look, the way I view the world is Mizzou is on top of the world. And so that's always going to be the most important thing. But
you don't remember Tyus Edney, fortunately.
I do not. I was alive. I know I know what my dad was doing. My dad has described to me his reaction to that play, but no, I was an infant, and so I was hopefully sleeping.
You're lucky.
And I am lucky in that regard.
I would have been sleeping.
I don't remember, I don't remember the fifth down. There was a lot of stuff that happened that I was fortunate enough to miss. And then Mizzou has sprinkled in some goodies for me during my lifetime that I've had to endure. But no, when I think about, and like you can contextualize it too, my prism of Cardinal baseball has been different for the past decade covering it. But I feel like because it was an early round game, people that were describing, in a lower tier, I agree, but people were describing like 2021 wild card game, feeling like the Cardinals were, you're in that game against a good Dodgers team, and then Alex Reyes gives up a home run. What was tough about Game 7 for the Blues is like they had it. Everybody was ready to celebrate. And maybe that was the crowning of what they were going to do this year, but it was going to be like, you beat the President's Trophy. Like that was going to really feel like something that mattered to people.
Brian Ellison, one of our great chatters, points out Game 6 in 1985 against the Royals was worse because everybody was ready to celebrate then.
Yeah.
The Cardinals have the 1-0 lead in the ninth inning.
That's a World Series. So undoubtedly, had I been on the planet for that, I would say, much worse. But
and it was an official that did it. It wasn't you. You had no control over it.
My favorite response to this is Samuel Howe 2 texts later just goes, "Nah, Brian, we have Tudor going in Game 7."
So Whitey walks into the clubhouse because everybody was gassed. Tudor had thrown 275 innings during the regular season, well over 300.
Is that a lot?
Yeah. So Whitey walks into the clubhouse after Game 6 and says, "That was our shot, boys." And a lot of the Cardinal players have never forgiven him for being honest.
Yeah.
But he was honest.
That's
to a
probably
fault.
not the best bit of managing in his career.
Yeah, well, he knew.
In and telling your team
He knew his team.
Yeah.
I can forgive it. Yeah.
Fair.
Yeah.
I'm trying to the way you described the Blues loss. I think I'm kind of starting to contextualize it for me, and I'm going to put it below the 2007 Big 12 championship because much like that team going into that game, there were still 2 pretty big hurdles to jump. And the Blues had multiple rounds and some very good teams and the hardest trophy to win. But the same thing too, the amount of defeat from the hope I had for that Mizzou Tigers team. But to your point, I think you described it perfectly why those 2 teams are right next to each other. They went as high as they possibly could.
Yeah. And
you probably can't hurt it.
Here's the thing. I hate to do this about the other night, but it's true. When the Blues gave up the goal with 105 left, they gave up another empty net goal. They another with 2 seconds left. They gave up another empty net. Those were their 14th and 15th empty net goals that they gave up this year. So for me, it was just, here we did it again.
Surely they give up the first one. You're like, surely you're not going to do it again, right?
I'm not, but please don't call me Shirley.
Yeah, Randy. I get it mixed up sometimes. I'm in a bad spot, guys. I told you. It's a good thing I was not filling in yesterday. Let's just put it that way. But no, it's just I could understand that this was not, and it wasn't the championship round. Like you can talk about the 07 Big 12 championship. A lot of those, you're a lot closer to being right there at the very end of it. And the Blues were not that, the nature of the Stanley Cup playoffs, but they won this series. Like I've never felt like the wrong team won a sporting event in the way that I felt about this hockey series. And I know that's objectively wrong because the right team scored more goals. I know how scoring works and how they determine the winners. I just can't. It's something like a glitch in the matrix. I cannot place. It's shocking to me.
Our buddy Anthony Stalter is an Atlanta Falcons fan. Can you imagine how you would ever get over that 28-3?
You can't.
No.
That's part
impossible.
of it. That's part of it. The definitive nature of we've already won this game. There's only a few in sports that are on that level. 28-3, it's over.
Yeah. Let me give you
That's how I felt though about 3-1 with a couple minutes to play.
Let me give you something that could make it worse. And Matthew, you can weigh in here too. Here's what made it worse for me. And this is why Super Bowl 36 was worse. Once I found out that the Patriots had cheated, that made it even worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I knew the Rams were clearly the better team. Vegas knew they were 14.5 point favorite, but the Patriots cheated.
Now imagine being a child and that happens, and then you're like, you know what? I really like this Panthers squad. And then a year later, I really like this Donovan McNabb.
Yeah,
And then you have to watch them beat 3 teams that you glom onto, and you find out in the back that they probably cheated at least 2 or 3.
All of them, all 3 of them.
I think the only one that we haven't heard like hardcore stuff come out of is the
Philly.
Panthers one. I think there's been a lot of
Panthers. Was it John Casey that kicked the ball out of bounds?
Yeah, it's an inexcusable mistake from Casey. But to your point,
but they at that point they were taping opponents' signals from the sidelines.
Yeah. Also, to that point, I didn't know this. Did you know that McDaniel got in trouble for that in Denver?
Yeah,
I had no idea until I was watching a podcast.
Yeah.
And I forgot who the former players were that were hosting the podcast, but they were talking about how Denver. Oh, it was literally a Denver player was talking about how they started off 6-0 under McDaniel, and he was like, "This guy's the greatest coach ever. We're all much better players than I thought we were. This guy's coaching us up." And then the NFL catches them and tells them you have to stop doing it, and they go like 1-7 to close out the season. And he's like, "Oh, we were cheating. That's why we were so much better than I thought we were." That's
right.
nuts.
Pretty good though. If you're cheating and you don't even know it as one of the players on the team, somebody's doing something right.
Jeff Katubi, I like this. The sports pain lessens when you win the championship, but if you never do, like Atlanta, it eats you alive. And that is my description of my life of Blues hockey, because I thought for sure they were cursed, right? With all of the bad things that happened to the organization, with Dan Kelly passing away, with Barclay Plager passing away, with Doug Wickenheiser falling off the back of a pickup, with Bob Gassoff passing away, with the departure of Gretzky, with the Yzerman goal, with Harry Ornest owning the team, and before Harry Ornest, the Ralston Purina folks leaving the franchise at the doorstep of the league, and the Blues having 2 people basically in the employ of the organization as it was headed to Ontario. There were so many bad things that happened. You thought, okay, they got to be cursed. So I was pained every year. But when they won the championship, all of that pain was washed away. I still remember it, but all of that pain was washed away. Sure, I remember Al Arbor getting fired here and then going to the Islanders and winning 4 Stanley Cups. Sure, I remember Joel Quenneville getting fired here and going to the Blackhawks and winning 3 Stanley Cups. Sure, I remember Jacques Demers getting fired and going to Montreal and winning the Stanley Cup. Sure, I remember Chris Pronger getting traded and we had the worst record in the league and Edmonton goes to the Stanley Cup final. Sure, I remember all of that
There's
stuff.
a lot of
But
these.
it's all been washed away because we won the cup in 2019.
And when Mizzou wins a championship, I won't be wearing any clothes. I'll be running through the streets of Columbia. Whee! There are no rules. Nothing matters.
Yeah.
Woohoo!
Now, this is epic from Ellipsis 150 on the screen right now. One of my best friends is from New York, and he and his family are diehard Buffalo fans, Bills and Sabres.
Oh, that's tough.
Oh, man. Think about that, because neither of those teams has ever won a championship.
And you've got Josh Allen during the period of time that Patrick Mahomes is playing in the NFL.
Yeah.
Like that's a tough beat.
And you had Jim Kelly against one of the great dynasties in the Cowboys.
And not only that, it's not just the fact that you lose 2 to the Cowboys. To me, there's something especially horrible that they lose all 4 to one division. Is that
the Redskins in 87,
Redskins
Giants
is like
Giants
the fact
in
that
86,
it's all
Redskins
just
in
like that pocket. I don't know why it's always grated me that it didn't get spread out a little bit. Like they didn't lose one to like the nation's Seahawks or anything like that. I know they were in the AFC for a while, but you know what I'm saying. It always grated me that it was just those 3 teams.
90, 91, 92, 93. So it was 90, the Whitney Houston Super Bowl, and then 91 in Minneapolis, and then 92 and 93. Losing to the NFC East. And by the way, arguably 3 of the best coaches in the history of the league. If you're going to put together a top 10 list, you've got Gibbs in there, you've got Parcells in there, you've got Jimmy Johnson in there.
That's you lost to some incredible coaches while having one of the great underrated coaches of all time.
And Marv Levy?
But
Yeah. Where would you rather be than right here, right now?
This era is supposed to be like you Bills get him a quarterback, and you would think, oh, this is where we get to finally get one, and still waiting.
Yeah, and I do root for Buffalo fans in general. I don't like their owner Terry Pegula because he was in on the whole Rams move thing. He's buddies with Kroenke, but I do root for their fans, and I hope at some point they get a championship.
I agree with that, and I really like Josh Allen too. I know that's
awesome.
Like in the context of the Bills and everything in the 90s, like that's just a small piece, but maybe he's the piece that can eventually get him over the hump.
If it wasn't for older Minnesota fans having 2 cheating World Series to celebrate, I feel really, really bad for the Minnesota area because the Timberwolves are just one of the more in history mired just NBA franchises, and obviously the Vikings hasn't been recent, but are the winningest franchise without a Super Bowl in NFL history, and they've been around forever. And so it's them and the Lions have been tortured, the Browns too, but the Vikings at least put a lot of good teams on the field and never win. But again, you have those 2 cheating World Series in the 90s, so you don't get my sympathy for a little bit.
So just because of their building, just because they were blowing the air out from behind home plate when they hit, and turned it off,
just because of that,
turned it off when they weren't hitting,
just because of that, right?
Okay,
no big deal. It's
fair enough.
I'm sorry, did they win a lot of home games in those World Series?
Yeah, they kind of did.
Yeah, I think so.
But don't you, now that you look at the way things played out, he's saying no, but you look at the way, aren't you glad that before he left this earth that Kirby Puckett got a chance to enjoy a world championship, one of the happiest men on the face of the earth then, and not now.
But it's like, would sports history be better if Dan Marino would have videotaped people's calls and won with the Dolphins?
No.
If Tony Gwynn would have, gotten some help with the Padres, would sports history be better?
Yes.
Okay. That one felt a little personal for you.
Yeah. I love Tony Gwynn. He's one of my all-time favorites.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be different.
Yeah, Kirby Puckett winning one is awesome. I will admit that is nice. But I mean, come on.
Yeah, you're right. It didn't have to happen at the expense of the Cardinals.
Exactly.
But we didn't have everything going for us either. I think both Clark and Pendleton were hurt during that World Series. So and we were close. We had a chance. We had a chance to beat them.
Just had to win a game away.
Yeah.
Wind tunnel.
Great. Yeah. Samuel Howell, wide right. Come on, why do you do that to Buffalo fans?
That's tough, man. That
2
is
wide rights. Yeah. Craig Lewis, how dare you? They don't control the AC. I think in Minnesota the home people did. That's fine.
Mainly because I feel like if you're in Minnesota, having a building full of people and not being able to control the AC is a bad thing to have in Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
Like after September, you can't control the AC. It's stuck on 70. It gets really cold outside. All of a sudden, you're going to lose all your Minnesotans.
You're going to lose them.
Need that.
Minnesotans, yeah. Craig Lewis, this is Super Bowl 36. If Falk carries the ball 25 times, not 15, the Rams win. I think that's an interesting thought. Rams did pass for 367 yards in that game. Didn't do very well getting into the red zone. You are correct about that.
That was a Super Bowl record at the time, wasn't it?
Yes. But the big play of that game was a pick six. Rod Jones failed to block. I think Vrabel was rushing, the new Patriots coach. I think he was rushing Kurt Warner, hit him. Kurt threw the pick six to Ty Law in the first quarter. And that, to me, was the play of the game. It wasn't to the fact that they didn't run Marshall. And, oh, by the way, Jim Hannafin literally went to his grave saying that the Rams needed to run the ball more against the Patriots that day.
Also, I feel the need to bring this up because I did a lot of Rams research, but before I worked with you, I never knew about this point. That's not maybe the most important errant pass in that Super Bowl. As you go to the fourth quarter and Tom Brady puts a ball out of bounds, that is 100 times out of 100 intentional grounding.
It's unbelievable.
And
it's one of the most
Patriots get away with it, stop the clock, don't lose the down, everything unfolds how it does.
Okay, so here's how messed up I am. It took me more than a decade to watch that game again.
Oh, really?
That was like the worst night of my life.
Yeah.
It was awful. So actually, we were going to come home. Our plan was it was me and Jim Holder and somebody else. Actually, I think a guy that spent time in this building, John Hadley. We were down there. We were planning on going out on Bourbon Street.
There you go.
The Rams won.
Yeah.
And then going back to the hotel and then coming back in the morning. We did our post-game show until midnight. We were out of there. We got the hell out of New Orleans. But that game was just such a mess. It was just, and then the stupid Patriots, idiots. They think, oh, we won because the Rams came out individually and they weren't wearing their helmet when they were introduced. That had nothing to do with it. There was just, it was just that call, by the way, that non-call, and you're right, Matthew, 100 times out of 100, that's intentional grounding, wasn't called. It was almost like we had a huge national tragedy and somebody wanted the Patriots to win that year.
See, I am glad I don't have all the memories other than Oh, I don't know, Dad. That field goal, maybe it's kind of long in the 40s. That's long, right, Dad? Yeah, you might miss it, son. No, he didn't miss it. And that's my,
47 yards.
I was 6 years old. So,
by the way, another thing, not that it would have made a huge difference, but according to the officials, they had to change the rule that a field goal could only be in the air for 4 seconds, because that kick by Vinatieri was kicked with 7 seconds on the clock, and the clock stopped.
Yeah.
And the clock ran out.
Right.
So they should have had to kick it off again. Not that anything weirder is ever
You never
happened.
know.
Well,
You never know.
It would have been worth it. So they literally changed the rule about that. They said, yeah, that wasn't really in the air for 7 seconds. So anyway, thanks for the catharsis here.
Yeah,
everybody.
who started this? This is probably my fault bringing up that.
Yeah,
Asking Randy what was worse.
yeah, no, that was my fault.
I think we found at least one that was worse than the Blues game 7 the other night for Randy.
I had to contextualize your pain.
Yeah, well,
So,
thanks for that.
And Craig Lewis, one more point that I want to make for you. You're right that Marshall had carried the ball a lot, and especially against Philadelphia in the previous game, in the NFC Championship game in 2001. And Marshall was significantly less effective when he had a lot of carries in back-to-back games. Yes, Matthew.
Also, I'm doing this off the cuff. I might be wrong, but I feel like he didn't have 25 carries a game. He had 25 touches a game.
That might be. The number
25 carries a game seems really high for him.
But I think in those playoffs he might have.
Oh, for playoffs. Okay.
Yeah, I think because he carried the load against Philadelphia in the NFC Championship game. No doubt about it.
I was just thinking of the regular season.
But again, to back up your point, Marshall did go to Martz that week and said, look, this is my hometown. This is my dream situation. Give me the ball. And I think when Marshall Falk says, it's my hometown, it's my dream situation, give me the ball, you give him the ball.
You might give him the ball. You might be inclined to do that. Yeah.
So anyway.
Yes. I mean, it's just.
How do you guys like being therapists here?
I didn't know that this was,
I kind of enjoy it.
I thought I was going to have a hard time coming in going, but by the way, everybody, not over the Blues thing and never will be, not watching hockey anymore. And then we got to stuff that I didn't even know I was still sad about.
Yeah, it's 24 years ago. Unbelievable.
Couldn't help myself. myself.
All right. Hey, we've got more stuff that you need to know about, including our friends at DraftKings Pick 6, which is pretty awesome. If you don't play it, you can do it right here on your phone. Just grab your phone, download the DraftKings Pick 6 app, and you can pick out a couple of highs or lows for that particular day's games, whether it's NHL, NBA, MLB. You can play the game and you can have a great time. So I'll give you an example. Like tonight, the Ant-Man, you can go higher or lower than 28.5 points. Ant-Man, Anthony Edwards for Minnesota against Golden State. You can go higher or lower. You know what? I'm going to go lower. I think that Jimmy Butler will probably tie him up a little bit. And then Tyrese Halliburton plays against Cleveland. You can go higher or lower than 18.5 points there. I think I'll go with Tyrese Halliburton to come up with more than 18.5 against the Cavaliers. You can pick anywhere from 2 to 6 games that you go higher or lower on, and you can win cash. It's so much fun. You can do it with any sport you want. Like I said, all you have to do is select 2 or more players and choose if they'll have more or less of a stat. Pick 6 available in Missouri, in California, in Texas, Georgia, Missouri, and a lot more. And if you go to the promo code STL Sports, use the promo code STL Sports on the DraftKings, you can get $50 in Pick 6 credits instantly on just a $5 entry. Cash in your baseball knowledge. Download DraftKings Pick 6 and use the promo code STL Sports.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 and over. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
Okay, Brendan, I want to know, but Jeff Passan has an interesting piece up about the next players to make $300 million, $200 million, $100 million in Major League Baseball. And for his $100 million players, one of them he has is former Cardinal farmhand Zach Gallen, who's going to turn 30 in August. He's a free agent at the end of this year. the Cardinals have all that young starting pitching. Can you see, whether it's next offseason or the offseason after, can you see the Cardinals getting into the $100 million free agent business?
No,
I don't either.
I don't think there's a chance that they would. I think they might sign some of their guys. I'm hopeful that they'll do that because I think that's an important message to send to fans that, again, it's that mindset of, hey, we're not maybe where we're going to be just yet, but it's not going to be 3 to 5 years of total torment because these guys who are homegrown, who are worthwhile, we're going to pay up and keep them around. But that might be the extent of their, big spending as I see it.
He has, by the way, a couple of players with the potential to make $500 million. And one of them will come up this offseason, Kyle Tucker of the Cubs. I wonder, because his numbers are comparable to Soto's from last year, to Juan Soto, who got $765 million. He's going to play next year at the age of 29. I'm intrigued to see what sort of a deal that Tucker gets and who it's from. Would the Cubs go $500 million on Kyle Tucker?
I think they might. I think historically you'd look at that ownership and say, no, probably not. But what if he has an MVP caliber season and does it the whole year and the Cubs make a deep run into October? Like they're in the lead in the division right now. It wouldn't be crazy to expect they could tangle with like the Dodgers, the Mets down the line in October. And if that happened, would there be enough of a groundswell to go, look, maybe this is a guy that we just plant the flag and build around? But if it's $500 million, probably not. But I don't know. Like that'd be a hard one to do, Randy, because they gave up a good prospect to get him. And if you just get him for the 1 year, does that, and it works, like it works exactly the way you would have wanted. He can be a staple in your lineup. That'd be a tough one to just say, we'll get a draft pick or whatever it is. Like, I don't know.
And here's what Passon writes at ESPN.com. He says about him being a $500 million player. This one was tough. Nobody doubts Tucker's talent as a player. The combination of other elements, a potential lockout after the 26th season, changing the game's finances, the presence of big revenue teams that could choose to avoid a deal the magnitude of which Tucker will rightly seek, simply makes it a challenge to predict whether he'll land here or in the previous tier, which was $400 million. On Tucker's side are the comparables. He's a better player than Vladimir Guerrero Jr., whom the Blue Jays gave $500 million to. He'll play all of next year at age 29. He's one of baseball's best power speed combinations. Everything is there for Tucker to exceed $400 million. Surging past $500 million could be tough, but then no one anticipated Soto getting $765 million either. The other part of it is you have to find the team now that has $500 million to spend on Kyle Tucker.
It's a little game of musical chairs that there's not 30 teams that are opting to sign that type of contract. And most of them, even the ones that do, with a Soto example, they're not necessarily signing multiple of them.
Soto and Tucker are not going to wind up on the same team.
Right.
Despite how much money the owner, Steve Cohen of the Mets, has.
And so you also think about the comps to Vlad and to Soto. Those guys are 26 years old right now. So it's a little bit, they're a couple years younger to where you can envision having a longer prime before the inevitable tail off toward the end of a lengthy deal like that. I'm going to say Tucker does not get $500 million simply because of the couple of factors, a little bit older. And as you mentioned, how many teams are remaining to bid in that territory? Team might have to bid in a 350 to 400 territory against a couple of suitors. But once you get into that range, I don't know. I just don't know how many of them are going to have that appetite. And therefore, it's kind of interesting, just like the win for guys like Vladimir Guerrero and for Soto and for those guys coming up when they did is going to maybe be more important than the how much, because at a certain point you're bidding against nobody. So you probably don't have to pay as much.
By the way, it's interesting with Jeff Passon's piece here that he does not have a single Cardinal among the group that could make at least $100 million. He's got Flaherty in the group that could make $100 million.
Really?
He's got Zach Gallen, obviously. He's got Sandy Alcantara as a guy that could make $200 million, but he doesn't have a single Cardinal in the group, even as others as possibilities and like contenders for the $100 million contracts. He's got Wilyer Abreu. He's got Francisco Alvarez. He's got Shane Baz and Taj Bradley. But I'm looking here. He's got Jackson Holiday. But No Mason Wynn. Oh, he does have Matthew Liberatore as one of those.
Really?
Guys.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But that's it. So it's interesting that his perception, Jeff Passan's perception of the young Cardinal players.
I mean, if Liberatore maintains a performance where it like appears he's a frontline starter in 2026 and he gets into ARB and starts to really build that way, there's an argument to be made there. Still a long way to go, continuing that proof of concept for what he's done. Guys like Nootbaar and Donovan are coming up the soonest, and I think unless you're talking about giving a guy a 10-year deal, like a really long contract to get into that range, if you're keeping the parameters of like the standard 5, 6, 7-year contracts, it gets a little bit tougher. But I don't know. I'm not going to rule out a world in which those guys could get there, but they might be a little bit on the older side as well to get it.
Specific to the Cardinals, Nootbaar's already 28, right?
That's what I'm saying. Like they're not young to where when they get there, they'll be 30.
So it would have to be Walker turning into something very quickly or Mason Wynn.
Mason Wynn would be the one to me because on his defense alone, especially by the time he comes up, you're talking about a guy that certainly with the upside he possesses, I would be surprised unless if he really goes all the way to free agency, the Cardinals should probably ink him now, my opinion.
Yeah.
But if they don't, and he's the guy that does reach free agency, I don't know. As long as that contract isn't a really short deal, I'd be surprised if he's not making in that range.
Yeah. And you can do the AAV thing with Nootbaar if you think he's the
Sure.
guy. By the way, you might be thinking Victor Scott, and he's 24, I believe. Yeah, he just turned 24. So he's another guy that probably from the Cardinals isn't going to be getting a 10-year contract and only has 2 years of service time. So by the time he becomes a free agent, he'd be 28 or 27, and he's probably not. He'll probably never get a 10-year major league contract.
No, but he should get an 8-year one tomorrow.
Oh man,
if I'm thinking in those terms, again, Nootbaar and Donovan are in that category where I'm not sure that the Cardinals are not going to trade him. Like there's a world in which they go, we get a haul because these are instead of waiting until a guy's a free agent, you do it earlier. I think they're building block pieces. Victor Scott and Wynn to me are building block pieces that you're not going to pay top dollar because they're so early in their career. And there's risk on their side for not taking the cash because what if they don't turn into those offensive players? And there's risk on the Cardinals side for you're not going to go crazy and project that they're, all-stars every year offensively, but with what they both bring defensively, I feel like sometimes that gets undervalued in these contracts. Now those gentlemen can say, well, I'm not signing it then, but I think there's a way to offer them something commensurate with market value and get a good bang for your buck and tell Cardinals fans, you don't have to worry about buying these guys jersey. They're going to be here.
Yeah. Dan W. Checks in. He asks if we're talking about Tucker, who's on the Cubs. Yes. Kyle Tucker of the Cubs, who used to be on Houston, is who we're talking about. I want to make one other quick point here about extending guys. I would be surprised if the Cardinals would do more than one player because I think the Cardinals are convinced that there's going to be a work stoppage that will lead to more cost certainty. And not that the cap would be beyond what the Cardinals would pay if they signed more than two guys, but I think there are teams out there that, Padres being the prime example, that will probably have multiple players that take them beyond what a salary cap would be after the work stoppage of 2026.
And it's going to happen. When you've got the commissioner of baseball talking about, well, it would actually be a good thing to have that because then you can force leverage and you can force the sides to the table. When that kind of language is being used multiple years out, it's not a great sign of not having one of those take place.
No. And so that's, my guess is that's one thing the Cardinals are.
I think you're spot on. Yeah.
The Cardinals might reach out under Bloom for a 6-year, $35 million contract. They paid Arenado, Goldschmidt, Gray big money. That's from John Fitz. That's my understanding. And whether or not it's accurate or not, I don't know. But Chaim Bloom obviously is a disciple of the Tampa Bay system. So is Andrew Friedman, by the way, who spends $900 million a year with.
You go somewhere where they've got the money. I guess it could change.
Yeah. But I would think that initially Chaim Bloom's approach will be more like Tampa Bay. But the Cardinals do desire, and this might be by signing their own players, they desire to have more of a hybrid where they do a lot of what Tampa Bay does, but still pay enough so that they can have a competitive team.
I think they've got the money to, when you hit on your homegrown guys, to be a little bit more aggressive in locking them up. But to that point, Tampa never really did that. And so what does it look like? And how does Chaim Bloom approach it when we know what Friedman did when he goes to the Dodgers and They've got the money to do it. Yeah, sign everybody. How does Chaim Bloom approach it, and how do the Cardinals ownership in conjunction with him approach it and find that happy blend, the hybrid, as you mentioned? Hopefully it's in a way that if somebody's worthy of staying, Cardinals get to keep that player, but we'll see.
And I think the big key here in St. Louis, and one of the reasons that they haven't succeeded in Tampa, is because they don't have anybody that the fans know. At some point, you've got to have players that fans want to go see play, and you've got to keep those guys around. You've got to build some continuity for your fans to be able to experience. And the Cardinals have not done that lately, especially with their own guys. Is the last real star? I was going to say Yachty. They've developed some other good players, but what's the last guy that the Cardinals developed that people want to go pay a ticket for a ticket to go see?
I mean, developed, and then they kept him, and it, went the distance. It's hard to find those guys that end up going the distance too. Like, guys had good runs. I'm thinking about guys like Colton Wong, who would play with a flair, and were the types of players that fans like to come and see, but you don't necessarily always see those guys go to the distance in their career the way that the big names you talk about, Yachty and Waino, did.
The Cardinals only have 2 Hall of Famers in their history that played their entire careers with the ball club, and that are Stan and Gibby, and Yachty will be the third of those.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's what I like about this current crop of players. Cardinals may not win a ton of games this year. We're going to find out. They get to play the games, and that's why you play them. But I do think you're finding, okay, it's not going to be very difficult to get fans to rally behind a Mason Wynn, to rally behind a Victor Scott. Once you have accepted that those 2 guys they're going to be around league average at their floor offensively, that's where I'm suddenly comfortable going, lock them up, because those are play style wise, they embody what you want to be as a franchise, I think, for the next decade. And so if they're not your best hitters in your lineup, that's okay. You can still extend those guys and have them as core pieces.
And if the price is right, I know that the Cardinals are averse to this because they're generally risk averse, but it wouldn't break my heart if they would try to sign a guy like Quinn Matthews, because I think he's going to be a good pitcher for a long time, and the price is only going to go up. When he gets going, the price is going to be outrageous. So he might, in my opinion, he might fit the profile of a guy that you sign before you even see him in the major leagues.
Yeah, and like JJ Weatherholt, I think, is another guy that you may feel that way about. Is there risk associated with that? Sure. I think that makes sense for the team. All of those guys, in the names we've talked about, make sense for the team and organization the Cardinals want to be. I don't know if the appetite financially is going to be there right now. Like, the timing might be wrong because of the potential work stoppage, because of, TV revenues has changed in what they expected to what they're actually getting. Now they're having a front office, not upheaval, but there's a transition from a period of, it's been Mo for so long. What does it look like in the new era? There's so many things happening at once that I fear that, even though it makes perfect sense for who they describe they want to be as an organization and the way they want to home grow their talent and then be able to keep that talent and keep it in front of fans, I'm worried that the timing could be wrong from a financial perspective.
I couldn't agree with you more. And in addition to that, and I'll take a look at the number here, but the Cardinals are projecting this year to draw 1 million fans less than they drew 3 years ago. If the average person that goes to the ballpark is spending $50, tickets, concessions, some of the parking that the Cardinals get, and the Cardinals are losing all of those, then all of a sudden you're looking at a $50 million loss over the course of 3 years. Now, that's not to blame the fans because the product hasn't been very good. But the fact of the matter is, if you don't have $50 million to spend that you had 3 years ago, that's $50 million that you spent on players.
Right. And I think that's happening on the TV side as well, where they say, well, we're locked into this deal now, but it was less than the deal they told it was going to be. And because of the nature of the business and the model, we didn't really have a better choice. Now, ideally, I don't know the numbers, Randy, but hopefully the streaming, opportunities they have had maybe helps to close that gap a little bit. That has changed, but I don't know that it's enough for them to, in light of everything that could be coming from the whole financial structure of MLB, having a shift with whatever they come up with after 2026. I think holding pattern is something they're they're comfortable with, even if fans are going to be disappointed by that. And another reason that they might be comfortable with it is like, okay, Chaim Bloom has operated on a tight budget before. And this is, he wasn't the guy in Tampa, but he was a high up in that front office. So if we have to kind of do it this way for a few years to get by, maybe we've got the right guy in charge. They may have that mentality.
In 2022, Cardinals drew 3.3 million fans. They averaged roughly 40,994. That was 3.32 million. This year, they're averaging 28,875. That's a pace for 2.338 million. So that's 1 million fans that came to games in 2022 that so far aren't coming to games in 2025. And that's $50 million. That starts to add up. 50 million here, 50 million there. Starts to be a problem.
No, it's not nothing. I know if I lost 50 million, I wouldn't be doing okay.
I would not. No, it would not be my best day.
It wouldn't be my best day. Would it be worse than that day in New Orleans, or is that probably not something to bring up again?
I'd rather lose the 50 million. Okay, I'd rather lose the 50 million.
And I believe him.
Oh, by the way, somebody asked, and I want to point this out. Somebody said, "Would that have saved the franchise for St. Louis?" No, Stan Kroenke was dead set on moving this franchise out of town. It didn't matter if they won 5 Super Bowls in a row. Now, the owners might have felt differently if they would have won 5 Super Bowls in a row.
Yeah.
But Stan was dead set on getting this team out of St. Louis, and there was no way that we could save it. That was a done deal. The commissioner lied for him. The other owners lied for him, and that was a done deal. Hey, tonight after the game, Libertor and Skeens, we've got Cards 365 post game, and you need to be a part of it. You can check in right here at Sports Hub STL on YouTube, and to join our post-game show. It's spectacular every night. Are you part of that tonight?
Tonight, I will be down at the ballpark, but I will be on Cards Hub 365 around 1 p.m. this afternoon. We'll talk with baseball. I believe myself and Mike Claiborne will be talking things over. And I heard that Claibs was on the radio broadcast last night, so I want to get his interpretation of that Victor Scott play at home and what he might have had to say about that. So that'll be coming up around 1 o'clock this afternoon.
Looking forward to that. Cards Hub 365 pre and post here on Sports Hub STL. And of course, all our pre and post game shows are brought to you by our friends at Hot Shots. And Sports Hub STL is presented by DraftKings, where the crown is yours. Mr. Schaeffer, I enjoy working with you. This was fun.
Yeah, I enjoy it every Tuesday for the time being. We'll have some fun talking things over, and maybe by later in the summer I'll have more positive things to say about the Blues.
I don't feel it. I'm not feeling that.
No, maybe not.
Matthew Rocchio, great job as always, sir. That's our audio and video engineer, the one, the only Matthew Rocchio. I'm Randy Karraker. Brooke will be back with us tomorrow. Thanks for joining us on Sports Hub STL. For all of us, we'll see you tomorrow morning at 10:02. So long, everybody.